Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Decoding the Unknown. I, as always, am your host, Simon. I'm here, one of my writers. In this case, Danny's written me. Was Avril Lavigne... Excuse me. Was Avril Lavigne replaced by an imposter? Well, the answer's no. Thanks everyone for being here. No, I'm just kidding. Danny has written, somehow, 25 pages on this. I vaguely heard of this conspiracy theory. I think it was into pictures, and I'm like, this is clearly nonsense. Aren't they like, oh yeah, she was replaced by a security guard or bodyguard or something? Who was obviously a woman. Because women can be security guards. Let's crack on with it, shall we? The format of the show, I've never read this before. We're going to read it together. Let's go. Towards the end of 2003, a quite remarkable crisis meeting was said to have taken place at the headquarters of Arista Records in Santa Clara, California. There were several items of pressing importance on the agenda that morning, which could potentially deal a devastating blow to the record label's meticulously planned schedule. Aerosmith were refusing to complete their world tour following a heated argument over which one of them had failed to put the ham in the vegetarian quiche. Barry Manilow was threatening to write a whole album of new material himself. The vending machine in Sector 6 was spitting coffee all over the floor and creating a potential slipping hazard. And worst of all, Avril Lavigne, the record label's freshest and brightest rising star, who had just scored a massive breakthrough with her first album, had gone and died at the age of just 19. This was surely going to hamper any progress on her eagerly awaited follow-up album. Fortunately, one bright young executive came up with a cunning plan. He just got on the telephone with the vending machine leasing company and arranged for an emergency call-out that afternoon. But what about the other little problem concerning the dead teenage pop star? No, this isn't what... Like, there's been bigger stars than Avril Lavigne who have just randomly died. Like, they didn't... There's no Kurt Cobain replacement. But he was... Kurt Cobain was a bigger deal than Avril Lavigne. Yes, definitely. It's Kurt Cobain. Although maybe he's just such a big deal because he died. I don't know. I'm not a giant Nirvana fan, so... who really knows? But... she'd just be dead. They wouldn't replace her. Like, people die all the time. Who is that other woman? The British woman? She sang sort of jazz music. God damn it. She also died. People die. They do drugs and stuff. It's their thing. Like, they're pop stars and rock stars. It's what they do. They die. Young. You know that feeling when you're sipping coffee? Maybe you're at your favorite cafe, you're browsing the web, and then you remember, is my data all exposed because I'm just using their public Wi-Fi? And the answer to that is, yeah, probably. And that's not ideal, but fear not, because Surfshark have the solution to all your online privacy and security needs. Surfshark VPN keep your entire online activity private, encrypting everything you do so snoopers and trackers are left in the dark. Plus, it's also extremely convenient. With Surfshark, you can just have one account for all of your devices. Truly unlimited number of devices. And if you're skeptical, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. Also, speaking about global access, maybe you're abroad and you want to watch a Netflix show from back home, or maybe you're just bored of what's available in Netflix in your country and you want to try somewhere else. Well, Surfshark allow you to do that. They've got over 3,200 servers in more than 100 locations. Whether you're binge watching your favorite shows or accessing restricted content while traveling, Surfshark have you covered. Plus, they got 24/7 customer service, so if you run into any trouble, they are there for you. So what are you waiting for? Secure your privacy with Surfshark. Enter the promo code DTU for 4 months extra for free at surfshark.com/DTU. So thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring, and now back to it. You might be wondering what I'm waffling on about here, as Avril Lavigne is still very much alive today at the age of nearly 40. I literally watched her perform live on the television yesterday as she put in an appearance at the Glastonbury Festival 2024. Oh yeah, did you, Danny? Did you? Or was it her Imposter, Danny? But I haven't just slipped into an alternative timeline in which Avril Lavigne died at 19, Hitler won the Second World War, and tactile keyboards for mobile phones never went out of fashion. Oh, we can dream, Danny, can't we? The dream of bringing the BlackBerry keyboard back, Danny, yes! I'm talking about one of the biggest and most enduring conspiracy theories relating to the secret death of a celebrity figure, which has now been bubbling away for the best part of 20 years and occasionally rises to the top of the newspaper pages. And it runs something like this. Really? This rises to the top of the newspaper pages? Really? That Avril Lavigne is secretly dead like 20-something years ago? Please. Following the death of the original Avril Lavigne in 2003, after the release of just one album, oh my god, 2003 was 21 years ago. Feeling old, whistle boy!
I am old.
After the release of just one album, all her subsequent recordings and live shows and TV appearances over the next 21 years were undertaken by a doppelganger hired by the record label to keep on shifting big units whilst keeping the tragic truth hidden from the hordes of gullible fans. What, they just also like her family and stuff just completely bought in with this? They're like, oh yeah, we'll just pretend that our daughter's still alive for, well, I guess money's a pretty good incentive because I'm sure they'd have to cut them in big time. But then how many people are you cutting in? Like, how many people actually know she's dead? Because over 21 years, that shit's gonna get out. But some of the most dedicated Avril Lavigne fans weren't quite as gullible as the record label had imagined. And by Avril Lavigne fans, we mean conspiracy theorists. Over the years, a collective proudly known as Avril Rangers have been piecing together all the vital clues which prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the fraudster who's been parading under the moniker of Avril Lavigne for the last 2 decades is far from the real deal. Apparently. Now, it's not very often that I reach a solid conclusion on a decoding the unknown topic before we've even made it out of the introduction, but in this case, even after adopting a thoroughly open mindset, it would seem quite ridiculously unlikely that any truth can be found in such a balmy conspiracy theory. Well, yes, Daddy, but you somehow managed to put 25 pages. I don't know how long that is. It's probably over an hour. We're 5 minutes in and we're on page 2, Danny. How has this happened? But the real questions we're asking today is how such a theory, based on the flimsiest of non-evidence, has managed to keep boiling for quite so long, how the silliest elements have managed to get traction around the world, whilst the more rational roots of the theory were willfully ignored, and why some of the most devoted fans of Avril Lavigne were so desperate to believe that their idol was dead. Of course, I could just be sneakily misdirecting you before I hit you with a shocking revelation at the end that this so-called conspiracy theory is absolutely true. There's only one way to find out. And no, I don't mean just fast forward to the end. Where would be the fun in that? No one's fast forward to the end. You got to watch this in its entirety or listen to it in entirety because that sends good vibes to the YouTube podcast algorithm. So they'll show these to more people. Yes, you know what else does that? Leaving a comment or putting a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
A girl you used to know. I guess this is a reference to an Avril Lavigne lyric, the subtitle of this section. I realize I don't know Avril Lavigne's music well enough to even do this, and I often get it confused with Shakira for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe they replaced Avril Lavigne with Shakira.
Shakira, that's tú?
In December 1999, Canadian country superstar Shania Twain invited a 15-year-old fan onto the stage at the Coral Centre in Ottawa to perform a duet in front of an audience of over 20,000 people. I was talking to my dad last week. And he was like, oh yeah, we just got back from seeing Shania Twain in concert. And I'm like, really? Like, Dad, I did not imagine you as a Shania Twain fan. He's like, oh, no, I'm a Shania Twain fan. And I'm like, we don't know about each other, I guess. Mad, I feel like a woman. Ba, 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 da, ba, ba, ba. That's Shania Twain, right? Please be that Shania Twain. Otherwise, that's really embarrassing, and it's already embarrassing. This wasn't just a spontaneous act. The 15-year-old fan had recently won a singing competition run by a local radio station in which the top prize was the opportunity to perform on stage with Shania Twain. That's got to be really awesome if you're an up-and-coming singer to win that prize. That's pretty incredible. Only for one song, mind, let's not take the piss. Yeah, it'd be a bit weird if you'd gone to see Shania Twain and everything is a duet with a random 15-year-old who you've never heard of. Following the performance, the fan had told Shania that have you guys seen that video? Where it's like Coldplay's playing in some like it's Coldplay. There must be like 50,000 people watching their gig. And there's one dude in the audience and he's holding up like a sign or something and it says, "Can I play piano?" And Chris Martin's like, "Really?" And the dude gets up on stage and nails, I can't remember what song it is, but Chris Martin's singing along with him. And this dude's like jamming out on the piano playing with Chris Martin. And I'm like, that is so cool. That would be, I mean, other than being Chris Martin, that would be like the second coolest thing to happen. You're still the second coolest person at that show. But still, like that is just got to be... there's no words for how awesome that is. Following the performance, the fan had told Shania that she wanted to follow in the footsteps of her favorite artist and become a famous singer one day. And she didn't waste too much time hanging about. The fan in question was from Ontario, Canada, and went by the name of Avril Lavigne. And I just found out Avril Lavigne's Canadian. Like, Canadians and Americans in my mind, because they sound the same to me. I'm always like, yeah, Avril Lavigne, American. William Shatner, found out he was Canadian. It's like, okay. And within the space of just a year from that brief duet with Shania Twain, Avril Lavigne landed her own 2-album deal with Arista to the tune of over $2 million based on the strength of a single 15-minute audition. God damn, okay, your life is going, mwah, this is fantastic. However, the pause button was here for just a little while as the record label tried to figure out what exactly they were going to do with their latest signing. She'd grown up singing church and country songs, but the record label wasn't convinced that those songs about Jesus wearing cowboy boots were likely to get heavy rotation on the radio at the dawn of the 21st century. Tell you what, record labels absolutely bang on this one. You're gonna want a wider audience than that. Why'd you have to go and make things so complicated? Jesus! That is Avril Lavigne, right? If it's not Avril Lavigne, I'm going to be really disappointed. There was initially a struggle to shape a sound and image that would fit, and at one point she was on the verge of getting dropped before getting the chance to release a track. Honestly, if she got dropped, not the end of the world. You're going to take that $2 million and go to another record label and be like, hey, I'll do $1 million. I already got the 2 from Astro Records or whatever. Like, I'll do you a deal. And you'll still be super famous in Avril Lavigne. Boom. Yes. By 2002, Arista Records had finally realized that it might be an idea to let Avril decide who exactly she wanted to be. That sounds like an Avril Lavigne song. Decide exactly who you want to be. Oh! The little girl who'd grown up singing church songs was now a 17-year-old who liked hanging around with skaters. And after handing over much of the creative freedom to Avril herself, the debut single, Complicated, oh thank God it was her, showcased a more alternative artist than Arista may have first had in mind when they were throwing around millions of dollars. She's often described as a punk pop princess with a penchant for grungy guitar lyrics dripping with teenage attitude. It might be a bit of a stretch to say that she's a hardcore purveyor of either punk or grunge, but her nickname of the Anti-Britney, not a label she ever cared for herself, kind of sums up how she was a world away from the polished pop high heels and excessive glitz of many of her contemporary artists chasing a similar young audience. Avril Lavigne was more of a rebellious tomboy, heavily influenced by skater culture, who balked at the prospect of wearing feminine clothing before preferring baggy clothes and Converses. Actually, she also adopted an early habit of wearing a necktie over a tank top, but to each their own. That's a weird fact. Was that some sort of 90s, early 2000s things? That I don't remember that at all. The point is that while she was clearly no Johnny Rotten or Courtney Love, Avril still delivered a refreshingly spiky alternative for a teen audience still drenched by the buckets of vomit getting relentlessly spewed out by the likes of the Backstreet Boys. Yeah, like, I don't really know Avril Lavigne's music particularly well, but I was much more of the, I liked alternative rock sort of thing. That was definitely my vibe. I didn't dress like a skater, don't get any ideas. I wasn't out there wearing baggy trousers. And it wasn't Converses that was hot when I was a kid. It was those really wide shoes that look a bit ridiculous. I mean, but I'm sure they were cool back in the day. But now, Converses somehow don't look ridiculous to me now. But Vans shoes. Do they still make those? They were just like these giant wide shoes, which thinking back on now is like, what was this? Never owned a pair of Vans because they were ridiculous then, and they're ridiculous now. And Avril certainly found a massive audience. The first 3 singles climbed to the business end of the charts all over the world, including the track that many might consider to be her signature tune, Skater Boy. We all know that one, don't we? He was a skater boy. Wait, she was a skater boy? No, he was a skater boy. She was a something. And that wasn't good enough for something. Maybe Jesus. He was a skater boy. She said, see you later, boy. There we go. Thank you, Danny, for including the lyrics. It's not quite Leonard Cohen. No, it's not. But it is getting there. That's who I associate much more with my parents. My parents love Leonard Cohen. Did not imagine my dad as a Shania Twain fan. But I'm sure he went to like every Leonard Cohen's dead now, right? He was old as dude. Wait, it's gonna be Siri, is Leonard Cohen still alive? Siri! Is Leonard Cohen still alive or what? Just silence. Doesn't even answer me. I've got 3 Siri things. Son of a bitch. Meanwhile, the accompanying 2002 debut album, Let Go, was a widely acclaimed monster hit. Not only is it credited with spearheading the rise of female-led pop-punk bands, but it went on to sell 16 million copies around the globe. I have no idea if that's a good number. I know nothing about record sales. Wait, isn't like a million platinum? That can't be right, because then this would be like 16 times platinum. And it's not exactly the Beatles, is it? So, I don't know. And is the most successful album of the 21st century. What the? To be released by a Canadian artist. Okay, good. We got that qualifier in there, didn't we? What about, God, who's that famous band? It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Bare Naked Ladies. I love the Bare Naked Ladies. Pinch Me is one of my favorite songs. People say the Bare Naked Ladies can be a little bit cringe. I think they're perfect. I love the Bare Naked Ladies. I won't be judged. I mean, you can judge me if you want. Don't give a shit. I'm going to listen to the Bare Naked Ladies on the way home today. Oh, no, I'm not. I was like driving over work and I'm not. My car got a flat tire. It's just parked outside my office and they've ordered a new tire and they're coming to put it on tomorrow morning. Oh, it's so disappointing. It was my fault. I was just driving a little bit too fast and I think I hit like a loose rock in the road. It didn't even give it a puncture. It just fully blew out the sidewall. And then I'm like, oh, new tires, 400 pounds, is it? Brilliant. One tire. I remember back when I drove like a piece of shit car. It was, I got a new tire on that bad boy for like 30 pounds. What the The rest of her career might be considered largely irrelevant from here, as we're no longer talking about the same artist. We'll come back to some of the sorry, I'm going so slow today. I really will stop telling personal stories about cars that no one cares about, and my parents' love of Leonard Cohen and apparently Shania Twain, and I'll actually get on with this because we've got a very important mystery to solve today, don't we, everybody?
Oh my god, yes.
We'll come back to some of the specifics of her subsequent life and work in a little bit. In a nutshell, she changed her musical direction and image quite a bit over the years and continued to carve out a glittering career, even if it never quite managed to emulate the triumph of that first album. She was nominated for no less than 8 Grammy Awards between 2002 and 2007, but didn't manage to win any of them. Oh, not Shakira. I'm already thinking your name's Shakira. Oh, Avril. It's so sad. I'm still chasing the glory of my first channel, Top 10s. I'm still just trying to make something that was as good as that, Avril. I'm being sarcastic, Avril. And whilst she's certainly done incredibly well for herself and enjoyed levels of success that would make most recording artists turn green with envy, she's racked up a total of 40 million sales and enjoyed a net worth of around $60 million. God damn! Avril Lavigne got that money! It's fair to say that she never quite made it into the same league as Britney Spears or Shania Twain. Wait, how much is Britney Spears worth? What? That's not possible. Britney Spears is not as successful as, in my mind, Britney Spears has a lot of drama surrounding her, but not a lot of success. Whereas Avril Lavigne, I just imagine has is quite good. Britney, and I know these net worth things are just nonsense, but let's try and see. Britney Spears net worth. 60 million. Oh, okay. You and Avril, same page. And who is it? Shania Twain is going to be making bank. She's going to be worth over 100 mil because she's been doing this forever and has some bangers. 400 mil. Shania Twain, you got it. On a more troubling and personal note, she was forced to take a break of around 4 years after getting bit by a tick in 2014 and contracting Lyme disease. Holy no way. Lyme disease sucks. Bringing up my parents again. My dad got Lyme disease, I think. He got bitten by a tick in Turkey and then I think it was Lyme disease. It's got another name. Not Lyme disease because he didn't get that badly f***ed up by it. But it was not fun. I remember him having a bad time for quite a while. At several points during the long and painful recovery process, Avril had accepted that the terrible disease was probably going to kill her. On another, I've got that vaccination against that Lyme disease. Oh my god, stop it with a tangent, Simon. They have so many ticks here in the countryside that I once went camping with my mates and I just slept outside because it's nice and I didn't want to carry a tent. I just slept in my sleeping bag outside. I woke up in the morning, I had 8 ticks on me. I was like, oh god, I'm going to get that Lyme disease. And so now I am vaccinated against Lyme disease because it is a disease that can really ruin your life. I used to know a guy who was he'd clearly been he had got Lyme disease, and it had made him slower. He was smart, and then he became Not stupid or anything, but he was less sharp than he used to be, for sure. On another troubling note, she was also briefly married to the frontman of Nickelback, of all people, between 2013 and 2015. Chad Kroger! I feel like I knew that. But according to the conspiracy theory, we're most definitely not talking about the same skater punk poet here. We're talking about someone else entirely who stole the wheels of the original artist during a spectacular hard flip that nobody saw coming. Paint a vulgar picture. Whilst 15-year-old Avril Lavigne had told Shania Twain that she wanted to be famous just like her, it turns out that fame isn't everything that it's cracked up to be. Oh, isn't it? I quite like it. It's quite good. Arista, I mean, not like Avril Lavigne. That's probably, there's that level of fame where it's just, now it's a hassle. But medium level is quite nice, I feel. Arista Records were obviously keen to strike whilst the iron was hot and maximize every opportunity from a signing that had cost them $2 million. The executives were fully aware that whilst Avril's debut album and early hit singles were the flavor of the month right now, those fickle teenage fans may well have moved on to the next big thing by tomorrow lunchtime. I don't know, Justin Bieber somehow pulls it off with his terrible music. If someone was like, would you rather listen to Avril Lavigne only for a year, or would you rather be forced to listen to Justin Bieber for a day? I would choose Avril Lavigne for a year because Justin Bieber's music is literally intolerable to me and anyone else who has taste. That meant that any notion of free time went right out of the window for Avril. When she wasn't working on the follow-up album or performing on stage or filming videos, she was getting pushed out onto a relentless promotional treadmill where she would get asked the same inane questions from aging disc jockeys who secretly wished they were interviewing Eric Clapton instead. The theory goes that this grueling schedule was eventually beginning to take its toll on Avril, who was feeling increasingly uncomfortable in the harsh glare of the spotlight. It reached a point where Arista was forced to find a vague lookalike to fill in for the real star during simpler promotional duties such as turning up at shopping malls and waving at fans from a comfortable distance. Honestly, sounds like a pretty good idea to take the pressure off, although if you ever get caught doing it, it's going to be real bad. And you will get caught eventually, like any conspiracy theory, it's going to come out. As a physically and mentally exhausted Avril began to sink deeper into the dumps, she was hit by a deep personal loss when she was told that her beloved grandfather had passed away back home in Canada while she was in the States answering questions from disc jockeys about her favorite type of squirrel. Well, you could say that about anything. It's like, oh yeah, no, my granddad passed away. Literally, just rephrase that. Well, while I was doing my job. It's like, yes, that's what most people are doing. It's just your job, Avril. You have to do this. Do I do that I don't like all the time for my job? I mean, no, not really. But is there a lot of stuff that I do that I don't like? Yes! Yes! It's called a job. Some of it you're not going to like, and you make the sacrifice to make... I hate doing this. This is the worst... No, I love this. I'm pretty lucky. A distraught Avril later turned up to the family home, only to find that everyone was out. Well, maybe you should call ahead, Avril. And it was on that day in early 2003 that the body of Avril Lavigne was later found hanging from the ceiling of her old bedroom. An even darker variation on the theory suggests that it was only made to look as if Avril had chosen to take her own life. She had apparently been invited to join the Illuminati. Oh, okay. Shortly after her debut album blew up, but her initial interest rapidly dissipated when it was discovered that she was expected to participate in blood sacrifices. Nobody wants to spend their Sunday afternoons participating in blood sacrifices. But you don't get to just quit the Illuminati after you've had a sudden change in heart. The organization couldn't risk the chance of Avril spilling the beans to Hello magazine, and maybe even revealing that the top secret location of the Illuminati HQ is a rundown working man's club in Barnsley. So she was wiped out on orders from the highest authority before her body was placed in the old family home and attached to a rope. Sounds likely, doesn't it? For God's sake, conspiracy theorists, get it together. Focus on a good conspiracy that actually's got something reasonable to it. Like the JFK thing, not this nonsense. Whatever the actual cause of death, it was now clear to Arista Records that the upcoming tour schedule and all future promotional duties were going to be a bit trickier than expected, which brings us right back to that crisis meeting in Santa Clara, California. After sorting out the more pressing problem of leaking coffee machine in Sector 6, the executives began to chew over the fresh inconvenience of how to keep squeezing money from an artist who had gone and died on them after only just hitting the big time. I mean, people have been working out to do this for ages. Didn't the Beatles release a song last year or whatever? It was like, oh yeah, we used AI to replicate John Lennon's voice or fix it or whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this. And it was so bad. It was just such a bad song. But somehow, Beatles still making music, getting paid. One of the bright young sparks suddenly declared that the obvious answer was staring them in the face, or at least was already on the company payroll. The vague lookalike who very occasionally stood in for the real Avril would just have to up her game quite considerably. Her name was Melissa Vandella, and she was apparently hired occasionally as a simple paparazzi distraction who would mislead the press hounds into following the wrong vehicle and allow the real Avril to make a discreet getaway. The job description became a little bit more complicated when she later stood in for the star in public appearances after Avril began to buckle under the strain of her newfound fame and grueling commitments. Avril and Melissa were said to have become quite close friends during this period, and Avril even began inviting her stunt double into the recording studio and providing her with voice coaching. But now that the real deal had gone and thrown a 7, Melissa Vandella was the natural choice to step into the Converses and pick up where she left off. Sure, she might need to work a bit harder on the mannerisms and the voice, and a few rounds of plastic surgery wouldn't go amiss either. But after all that, you could just stick a backwards baseball cap on Melissa's head and get her to wear a necktie over a tank top whilst singing about skater boys. I mean, who could possibly spot the difference? I don't know, the people who know her fans. It's not what happened. The record label would then be free to pursue the second phase of the career plan, and the fans would never realize that the original artist was no longer with us. Yet some of those fans, the kind who open their eyes and do their own research, weren't ready to be taken for fools. Incidentally, Aerosmith eventually made up after it was discovered that the ham in the vegetarian quiche was an honest mistake, while Barry Manilow was persuaded to hold off writing his own new material for another 10 years. I know nothing about Barry Manilow. Was he particularly bad at writing songs? I know Barry Manilow's famous, and I'm sure if someone played me a song by him, I'd be like, oh, I know that. But I couldn't name a single Barry Manilow song off the top of my head. Let's get physical and lyrical. The difficult second album syndrome, often referred to within the industry as the sophomore slump, is an all too common phenomenon in which an artist or band achieve huge acclaim with a groundbreaking debut album that came from nowhere, but then face the challenge of creating a follow-up under intense scrutiny and a new weight of expectation. Yeah, for sure, of course it's going to be really difficult. All too often, it goes horribly wrong. The most striking example that springs to mind is the Stone Roses, who released a debut album in 1989, which is still considered to be one of the best albums of all time. I don't know this. I've never heard this. I should listen to this. But after becoming embroiled in a legal battle with their record label, which dragged on for years, the band's second album, eventually released in 1994, was widely considered to be a disappointing, turgid mess, after which the band broke up, having pissed all over their legacy. Yeah, but I mean, what's better? You've got to have a crack at it, don't you? One of the many challenges faced by artists approaching the difficult second album is choosing which direction you intend to take. If you produce an album in a very similar vein to the first, you might get accused of treading water or being a one-trick pony. If you produce something radically different to the debut album, you risk losing the audience you brought into your original sound and put you on the map. Yeah, but you've also got to grow as an artist. A common tactic deployed with mixed results is to produce a sequel which dares to go way darker than the original. History is littered with so many examples of artists recording a frothy, happy-go-lucky debut album imbued with hope and innocence, and then following it up with a thoroughly miserable second album which bangs on about death and war and despair and paying too much tax. Yeah, this is how I feel about, Coldplay did it quite well, but it's like Coldplay it's like, oh, life's so sad, there's all these problems. And then it's like 3 hours later, it's like, how? And he's like, I would fix you. And it's like, bro, you're Chris Martin, dude. How bad can life be, my dude? There must be something about becoming famous which causes these dramatic mood swings. But this appears to be the broad route chosen by Arista and Avril too, when the second album, Under My Skin, was released in 2004. Avril Lavigne's difficult second album was always going to be more difficult than most, bearing in mind that she had died in between albums 1 and 2. There are conflicting theories as to how much the original Avril contributed to the second album before her death. Some say that the album was nearly completed and that Melissa was just working on the final mix, while others suggest that the original Avril never even started on an album which is entirely Melissa's work. But it's certainly a very different album to the first. We're not quite talking about Radiohead levels of grief and torment here. Yeah, I like Radiohead, but it is like, dudes, could you be more sad? Jesus. Fake plastic Chinese trees. I realize I like Radiohead. I can't remember the lyrics of Fake Plastic Trees, their most famous song. What the fuck? But there's a definite departure from the original sounds, with a much darker and melancholic tone seeping into the more intensely personal lyrics spread across a collection of heavier rock tracks and slightly soppy ballads. The very title of the album has rung a few alarm bells, with some suggesting that Under My Skin is a reference to how Melissa is now living under the skin of the original dead artist. Oh my god, it's like, that's how we did it. Have you seen the movie Face Off? Yeah, we got her face and we put it on mine, so I'm under her skin. Like my face is under her face. Or how the essence of the original Avril is now living under an entirely different body. Either way sounds a bit messy. But there are further secret clues scattered liberally through the whole album. These meaningful lyrics can be seen as either a foretelling of future tragedy from the original Avril or a subtle confession from Melissa that all is not quite as it seems. This immediately reminds me of the time we covered the Paul McCartney is dead theory on Decoding the Unknown, and we explored how the surviving members of the band provided helpful pointers to the truth over the course of the next few albums. Whilst I'd warn you in advance that the lyrical clues found within Under My Skin can hardly be described as compelling, and that's a generous way of putting it, at least we're dealing not with the concept of subliminal messaging here. These lyrics are right there in the open for everyone to contemplate, and there's no need to play the record backwards at the wrong speed in order to decipher the hidden codes. So, for example, the track Slipped Away is clearly a reference to how the original Avril is no longer with us, as the lyrics reveal. If it wasn't fake, it happened. You passed by. The day you slipped away was the day I found it won't be the same. I mean, that is just the most generic thing ever. It could mean anything. And I think that's like quite intentional, because that means people can apply the song to themselves, like, like horoscopes or whatever, and that makes it more personal to you and relatable, which is a good thing in music, if you want it to be like vastly commercially successful. Not convinced by this? No, me neither. Avril has provided the far more reasonable explanation that the song is about the night she heard her grandfather died, a genuine event which occurred while she was away touring with the first album. So, we'll let her have that one. But there are further clues on the album which might give us an idea of what the singer did next after hearing this sad news. The track and hit single Nobody's Home could be interpreted as an account of Avril finding an empty house when she returns to the family home to grieve. The lyrics observe, she wants to go home, but nobody's home. It's where she lies, broken inside. It's not lyrical genius, is it? I suppose it's very possible that Avril did indeed initially return to the family home and found that nobody was in at the time. In that situation, I would have just assumed that everyone had nipped out for a bit. I mean, look, people are going to be in the comments like, Simon, you just said you like Coldplay and stuff. I like Coldplay, but like... that lyric, you cut me down a tree and brought it back to me. It's like, what, Chris? What's that even mean? I remember looking it up on Genius once, being like, what the is he talking about? It's like, I don't think there was an explanation. It's just like, yeah, I don't know, it rhymed, did it? In that situation, I would have just assumed that everyone had nipped out for a bit. I'd probably just put the kettle on, have a cheeky rummage through the cookie jar as I awaited their return. But Avril's story continues in another track on the album, which hints that Avril took considerably more drastic and macabre measures. In the song My Happy Ending, we hear the words, so high hanging in such a fragile rope, don't leave me hanging in a city so dead, help up so high on such a breakable thread. The reason I'm not singing these is because A, I don't want to, and B, I don't know these songs. I don't think I need to go into detail on the perceived implications with this one, and it seems that things have now taken a pretty dark turn. It's enough to make you wish that she'd just written a few more songs about what happened next with Skater Boy. Tell us the rest of the story of Skater Boy, Avril. We want to know. Stop telling us about death. It's so melancholy. Another album track, Together, appears to be a direct message from Melissa as she sings, the truth isn't far behind me. Something is not right. When I close my eyes, the truth comes to me, and I'm living a lie. And the clues aren't always restricted to this difficult second album, which incidentally sold 10 million copies worldwide and became Avril's first chart topper in the US, even though sales figures were down quite a bit from the debut. Whoa, she must have just released at a bad time then, because someone else must have just done better. The third album from the entity known as Avril Lavigne was released in 2007 under the name of The Best Damn Thing, and again marked a rapid change of gear as Avril ditched the post-grunge gloom and delivered a far more poppy and commercial album targeted squarely squarely at the mainstream. Smart move for that money. Actual sales figures would continue to fall throughout the rest of Avril's career, largely in line with the general slump in sales of physical media, although it could be argued that she'd perhaps lost a fair chunk of popularity and relevance over the years. But this third album was still unquestionably a big hit of the year and spawned several chart-topping singles. Even though some felt the fusion of bubblegum pop with lyrics that still bordered on the dark side could feel a little jarring at times, a bit like someone taking the lyrics of Hurt, originally by Nine Inch Nails, famously covered by Johnny Cash, great song, and trying to put them to the tune of Dancing Queen by ABBA. I hurt myself. Oh, I like that. It's the title track from, in particular, The Best Damn Thing, which drew the attention of the conspiracy theorists as we seem to hear another outright admission from Melissa. In what appears to be a direct reference to her predecessor, she sings, "Like it or not, even though she's a lot like me, we're not the same." Blimey, she might as well have just released the album under her real name and be done with it. It's so weak, guys. Anyone who believes this, you're an idiot.
What an idiot!
Or maybe not, because if we're being honest, this is all just complete bollocks, isn't it? Yes, Danny! I'm sure Simon must have pointed out that at least 7 times by this point. At least 7 times, Danny. The whole concept of overanalyzing lyrics probably leads to madness at the best of times. If anyone were to take Morrissey's lyrics too seriously, he would probably have been locked away for his own safety years ago. Come to think of it, if Morrissey ever released a track entitled "It's Not Been a Bad Day Really, All Things Considered," then I'd strongly start to suspect that it had been replaced by a malfunctioning clone. But this case is particularly silly, as we're attempting to find hard evidence of unlikely real-life situations within typical vague and gloomy punk emo lyrics about empty houses and fragile rope and living a lie and not being the same, all of which could yield a million different interpretations, most of which have nothing to do with taking your own life and getting replaced by a doppelganger for the rest of your career. Even if the lyrics had been far more explicit, say, "My name is Melissa, I'm not the real Avril, she's dead. I said, 'See you later, girl,' but she didn't answer on account of her being dead." Just in case a single viewer is still harboring any doubts about this, I should break it to you gently that the Beatles never really lived in a yellow submarine. Elton John couldn't really know a first thing about a flying record, and despite what she claims, Mariah Carey would feel a bit pissed off if you turned up to her house on Christmas Day and offered only yourself as a present. Mariah Carey would be like, "What the?" Shania Twain be like, "It's raining men. They're all falling from the sky and dying horribly on the ground. Some of them are still alive but broken." So let's turn our gaze away from the ambiguity of slightly gothy lyrics and focus on something a little more visual. Say, for example, Avril's physical appearance. Even if Melissa went for the full plastic surgery package with all of the trimmings, the surgeons surely couldn't have perfected every tiny detail. A true fan would be able to spot the difference. And in this case, spots were a big part of the difference. Oh my. The real Avril had all patches of freckles in her arms, along with at least 4 moles, most of which mysteriously disappeared by the time Melissa came along. I've got an explanation for this. In summer, I have lots of freckles on my arms. In winter, I don't. They come out when it's sunny and they go away when it's not. Also, moles. I've had moles and now I don't have moles because they surgically remove them if they think they look dodgy. It's a thing. Stop it, conspiracy theorists. A few freckles did eventually make a comeback in later years, but the Avril Rangers reckoned that these looked less natural than before and were clearly tattooed onto Melissa's arm after the oversight was first brought to the attention of the record label. Please. I can obviously understand where this concern came from. I don't know about you, but whenever I meet up with a freckled friend who I haven't seen in a while, I always insist on performing a routine freckle count before engaging in conversation with them. You can't be too careful these days. Yeah, doppelgangers everywhere, Danny. There are other noticeable physical differences between the real and fake Avril Lavigne. The original Avril had faint skin blemishes on her face, which have disappeared. The shape of her eyes has changed, and Melissa is sporting a very different nose. That latter point was backed up by Life and Style magazine, who called in nose expert George Lefkowitz to sniff around the blatant photographic evidence. George concluded that Melissa's nose is more refined, has better proportions, and is clearly not the same nose. I'll tell you what, there's this thing that exists called a nose job that people get all the time, especially celebrities. If that's not enough to convince you, then consider this whopping discrepancy. Melissa isn't even the same height as the original Avril. According to Avril's own website back in 2002, when she was still alive, her official height was listed as 1 meter 58 centimeters, or 5.1 feet. However, Melissa clearly couldn't quite reach such dizzying heights. Ever since around 2005, Google has listed her official height as 1.55 meters, or 5 feet. Well, that's a very small difference. Also, for a while, I'd go online and this thing saying I'm 6'8". I am not 6'8". I'm sure if you search that, like a few down now, there'll be a thing saying like, Simon, what's the height 6'8"? Like, I mean, I'll take it. Actually, that's too tall. 6'8" is real tall. They surely could have afforded to splash out a bit on a limb lengthening surgery to sort out such a glaring difference. Had this been the other way around, we could perhaps have put it down to Avril experiencing a late growth spurt, but she's a bit young in life to be dramatically shrinking. The clues keep on stacking up if you look hard enough in the wrong places. Avril's singing voice has apparently changed since her death, and she's become increasingly out of tune. Although I think much of that theory is subjective. Avril's handwriting has changed, as can be seen by comparisons of handwritten lyrics before and after her death. Yeah, and again, people's handwriting, like the height thing it's a tiny difference, it's not a real thing. And the handwriting, it's like, yeah, I'm sure if I look at my handwriting from 10 years ago, it's going to look different, because I don't really write that much anymore, and when I do, no one else is reading it but me, so it's real messy. I can read it, pretty sure no one else could really get the gist of my handwriting. I don't dot I's or cross D's. As long as I can read it, that's all I care about. And if I'm writing so someone else has to read it, like I'm filling out like a hotel form or whatever, then I just print, because people can't read my handwriting. Well, so they say. We don't actually have too many examples of Avril's handwriting to compare, and the few that we do have to look at, they look reasonably similar to me. Yeah, someone could look at my handwriting and be like, it's reasonably similar. It's different, but it's reasonably similar. Some of the Avril Rangers have pointed out that their own handwriting has never changed at all since adulthood, so even the slightest hint of a difference in styles is deeply suspicious. It's not. Other people have noticed subtle changes in their own handwriting over the years, and you have to remember that Avril would have only been around 17 when she was writing the early samples. Yeah, I'm sure 17-year-old Simon, who was still at school and still had to write legibly for teachers who would have a go at you if your handwriting was not neat, had way better handwriting. I'm not sure if my own handwriting might have changed a bit since I was 17. It's hard to tell, because ever since I stopped having to leave notes for the milkman, I very rarely had to need to pick up a pen. I'm not even sure I'd remember how to use one. I write quite a lot because I like taking notes and like coming up with ideas and stuff using pen and pencil, or pen and paper. Pen and paper. But that's just me. Melissa clearly remembers how to use a pen, though, as she provided us with another blatant clue during a special photo shoot in which she'd taken the curious step of scrawling her own name across her own hands in marker pen. When I say her own name, I mean her own real first name. The photo clearly shows Avril 2.0 posing with the name Melissa etched across her fist. If the whole doppelganger conspiracy theory is not true, then it's a mystery as to who the Avril Lavigne was referencing when she did this, as she's never explained it. But even if the conspiracy theory was true, I'd think it unlikely that Melissa would have been allowed to get away with providing such obvious clues after the record company had gone to such lengths to cover up the truth. This is quite a common theme with conspiracy theories, though, and something we've mentioned on Decoding the Unknown before. After an individual or group or entire secret organization has invested millions or billions of dollars into hiding a massive secret, some non-sheeple truthers still feel utterly convinced that the same party then went on to leave a trail of fun clues behind for clever people to spot, so that the whole operation will be exposed. Unless you get a massive kick out of wasting your own time and pissing away your own money, you just wouldn't bother doing that, would you? No, Danny, you wouldn't. This is why many conspiracy theories are just nonsense. Before we move on to the final fundamental basic of why the current version of Avril Lavigne is undeniably a very different person to the original, it's worth pointing out that there are a few alternative theories connected to the well-being of the star. It was once reported that Avril did actually die until much later in 2013, when she was killed in a snowboarding accident at the Whistler Blackcomb Ski Resort in Canada's Coast Mountain, which may or may not be one of Simon's little business side ventures. It's not, but I do have stickers from Whistler. According to the website Global Associated News, quote, witnesses indicate that Avril Lavigne lost control of her snowboard and struck a tree at a high rate of speed. She was airlifted by ski patrol teams to a local hospital. However, the musician died instantly from the impact of the crash. Okay, Global Associated News. It sounds so real, but it must just be one of these fake news websites, right? If this ski resort does have anything to do with the Whistler Empire, then I think Simon might need to have a think about tightening up the safety standards, as several other high-profile names are also reported to have met a grisly fate at the exact same location over the years, including Mickey Rourke, Russell Brand, and George Clooney, all of whom are still claiming to be alive. In fact, all these stories originated from a prank website which encourages users to quickly generate their own fake news stories relating to celebrity snowboarding fatalities. What a weird little niche. And of course, it didn't take long for someone to plug the name Avril Lavigne into the fake story generator, as it seems a lot of her fans really can't handle the concept of the original Avril being alive for reasons that we'll return to later on. Not all of the Avril Rangers were convinced that she was dead, though. Yes, she'd plainly been replaced by a lookalike at some point in 2004, that much was obvious. But this splinter group of truthers reckons that the original Avril was still alive and well, but living in hiding. After being overwhelmed by the pressures of her newfound stardom at such a young age, she had decided to take a secret early retirement from the limelight, which forced the record label into wheeling out her replacement. I mean, that's completely unrealistic. What, she's just going to live inside her house and never go out forever? Proof of this can apparently be found in a photograph taken in a store in 2012, which offers a rare glimpse of the original Avril browsing the cheese counter. The reason we know this can't have been a photograph of Melissa is because she was supposedly battling Lyme disease at the time. Not only that, but some of Melissa's most recent wrist tattoos are missing from the original Avril, who never had them inked. Or the person at the cheese counter is just someone who vaguely looks like Avril Lavigne. Mystery solved. There's not really much to go on here, though. Whilst Avril was indeed seriously ill with Lyme disease for over 4 years, she wasn't diagnosed with the condition until 2 years later, in 2014. Besides, I'm not convinced that the woman in the photograph is either Avril or Melissa anyway, because her face is largely covered by a hoodie. So let's not concern ourselves with too many silly deviations, and return to the main, entirely sensible and logical theory. The current version of Avril clearly can't be the same as the original, because the two of them share entirely different values and principles. Oh, because I'm sure the fans know them so well. In 2017, Avril 2.0 made several posts across social media which revealed that she'd sold her soul to slim secret bars. What the f*** is this? A photograph of Avril tucking into her new favorite pleasure was accompanied with the words, "Feels good to be back in the studio again. Love, #slim secret bars. They're yummy snacks to have when working." Sounds like just like it's a sponsored thing, although she really should have included #sponsored to be in compliance with regulations and stuff. You can't just be telling people you think something's good and then not say it was sponsored. I mean, maybe it wasn't sponsored. Maybe she just really does love slim secret bars.
Yum.
One user was quick to vent her disgust at the star's actions, pointing out, Avril Lavigne would never promote a slim secret bar. The jig is up, Melissa. Stop it! Stop it! This must be that. Every time I imagine Avril Lavigne gives she'd probably be like, this is really annoying and dumb. People are dumb. I mean, I regularly go on the internet and it's like, oh, people are dumb. I suppose the idea here is that the original rebellious anti-corporate skate punk star would never have contemplated selling out with a string of cheesy sponsored posts for slimming snacks. You'd never catch me betraying my principles and taking the money just for the sake of promoting a range of healthy alternatives to sugary treats which allow you to take control of your cravings whilst providing you with bite-sized, body-loving, balanced nutrition for guilt-free snacking every day. Just to be clear, we're not getting paid by, what was it called? Slim Snacks, Slim Streets, Slim Secret Snacks. But if they do want to sponsor me, I'll take their money. But this kind of thing does happen with our heroes more often than we'd like. I'll never forget the time I first saw John Lydon from the Sex Pistols appearing in a TV commercial for Country Life Butter in 2008. Dude, you're in the Sex Pistols. Don't you have enough money? The former Johnny Rotten was one of the last people in the world I'd ever expected to see embracing any kind of corporate endorsement deal. But there he was, the former voice of the anti-establishment, prancing about in a tweed jacket whilst proclaiming that he loves the freshly churned, creamy taste of Country Life Butter. It was enough to make me choke on my smoked salmon avocado toast at the time, although John Lydon later revealed that the adverts helped turn his life around and get him out of debt, so fair play to him. Oh yeah, I guess that's true. You might be this dude from the Sex Pistols, but It doesn't matter how much money you earn if you spend it all. But I'm sure most of us have examples of our own seemingly rebellious young heroes who would have sneered at the very thought of getting into bed with branding departments during their prime, but in later years were seen promoting bum pimple cream or participating in Celebrity Pig Testicle Kitchen after the money had started to dry up. Yeah, join me in 10 years when I make my appearance on D-list Celebrity Pig Testicle Kitchen. God, that'd be depressing. I'm sure that if Kurt Cobain had lived to his 50s, we would eventually have seen him in TV commercials for Honey Nut Cheerios. That's just the way it goes. Treat yourself to a box of yummy Slim Secret bars and forget about it. Not sponsored by Slim Secret bars. Unless Danny is, in which case, Danny, you need to disclose or I'm getting in trouble. But I get the feeling Danny's not, because that would be weird. Other fans were incensed when the so-called Avril Lavigne took the decision to marry Chad Kroeger in 2013, a man whose main crime to humanity is being the frontman of Nickelback. Look at that photograph! Every time I do it makes me laugh! Chad Kroeger. Nickelback's alright. Avril had previously been married for 4 years to Derek Whibley, the frontman for skate punk band Sum 41. The faster we're falling, we're stuck. This is like a blast from the past of music that I used to listen to. Sum 41, holy. That was like 15-year-old Simon music. All killer, no filler. Who seems more likely to hang out in the same park as Avril. In contrast, Nickelback seemed to be the kind of band whom Avril might recommend to her deaf grandmother. Whilst they are unquestionably one of the most successful Canadian rock bands in history, they often attract ridicule for their formulaic, mind-numbing mediocrity, coupled with misplaced cocky arrogance, which has led them to becoming one of the most actively disliked bands of modern times. So how on earth could Avril marry the frontman of a band to which she seemed so diametrically opposed? It's a bit like Keith Richard marrying Judge Judy. Well, it didn't last very long, as they were divorced by 2015, and I suspect that there wasn't much bickering over the CD collection. But Avril was still very defensive of her ex-husband, even after the split, taking the time to have a pop at Mark Zuckerberg for being mean about him. What a weird world we live in, where Avril Lavigne's taking a pop at Mark Zuckerberg for some reason. And why is Mark Zuckerberg taking a pop at Chad Kroeger? Chill out, everybody. Can't you just all enjoy being like mega rich together? Although Mark Zuckerberg's different level of mega rich. During a demonstration video for his new home artificial intelligence assistant Jarvis in 2016, Zuckerberg demonstrated a rare attempt at humor when he asked Jarvis to play some good Nickelback songs. The response from Jarvis was, "I'm sorry, Mark. I'm afraid I can't do that. There are no good Nickelback songs." Zuckerberg immediately quipped, "Good. That was a test." He's here all week, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Zuckerberg, give it up! Avril didn't find it funny, though, as she took to Facebook to post a message which accused Zuckerberg of using his own platform to promote bullying, which he found to be in poor taste. All right, but Chad, as an adult man, if someone bullied me today, you'd just be like, off. We're not at school. I don't give a She concluded her rap with 3 hashtags: say no to bullying, the joke is old, and Nickelback has sold over 50 million albums. Mark Zuckerberg be like, yeah, I've made over $50 billion. I'm not convinced that making another little joke at Nickelback's expense constitutes bullying, but I'm sure those 50 million album sales help get the band over any gentle ribbing. Yeah, like when someone makes fun of me on the internet, I'm always like, oh no. Oh no. Oh, it's so sad, but you know what makes me feel better? My substantial success. And as for why a pop-punk princess may have decided to marry the singer of Nickelback, maybe they were both happy together and it's none of our business. 100% agree, Danny, yes! Let Chad and Avril do whatever they want.
I agree.
The most cringy thing about Chad is that his name's Chad. Otherwise, he's fine. Fair enough, but what about her radical change in image? The later fake Avril Lavigne was seen rocking a style that would have been enough to make the original Avril barf. Oh my god, yes, because people grow up. If I looked at myself at 15, I'd be like, bruh. I feel like any time in the past, if I looked at myself from 5 years ago, I'd be like, bruh, because we grow up and we mature and we get better at things. It's what happens. It'd be weird if Avril Lavigne was still dressing like a tomboy. Does Avril Lavigne still dress like a tomboy? I don't even know, but it would be weird. Whilst the real tomboy anti-Britney Avril sported pale natural skin, pin-straight auburn hair, smudgy black eyeliner, and always wore crumpled clothes and Converses, the fake Avril clearly didn't get the whole memo. In much later years, Avril was sporting a bronze spray tan and platinum blonde hair with pink streaks. She had calmed down a bit with the eyeliner to adopt a more natural look, but most notably of all, she'd ditched the tomboy outfit in favor of dresses and high heels. And we know why she suddenly started favoring high heels, don't we? It was that sneaky attempt to hide the fact that Melissa was 3 centimeters shorter than Avril. Or I don't know, maybe she just changed her style a bit as she grew out of her late teens. Yes. Anyone who dresses like they were still dressing as a teenager, what are you doing? Stop it. My mate Chaz used to be a long-haired goth back in his teens who didn't seem to be aware of any color other than black. Today, he's an accountant who usually wears slacks and golfing sweaters. These things tend to happen when you get a bit older, and I can understand why Avril might have fancied moving on from the teenage tomboy image before she hit 30. She herself has addressed the change of image in a recent interview with Galore magazine in 2022, in which she noted, "I was a total tomboy. When I hit my 20s, I'm not going to be dressing like I'm 17 anymore. My fashion's evolved, and I've been introduced to really cool designers. Before, I wouldn't want to wear a dress, but I learned to appreciate nice clothes and had fun with them." Yes, that's fine, and it's completely normal. What wouldn't be normal is her not doing that. It's a shame she didn't just stick with the neckties over the sweaters, but she reckons it was beginning to feel a little bit like a uniform. This gradual evolving style might also help explain the perceived difference in the shape of her eyes. The later Avril lost the hooded eyes from her younger years, which had raised a few quizzical eyebrows, but this may have been an entirely natural development, as hooded eyes can become much less pronounced in your later life. I don't know what hooded eyes are. But the shape of the eye can also look strikingly different based on something as simple as makeup, and Avril did plenty with that in her later years. Alright, so here's the very last, oh so persuasive argument. Melissa clearly had completely different music tastes to the original Avril, hence the quite radical changes in direction over the years. And we're not just talking about how she suddenly found that she could tolerate Nickelback. Over the course of just 3 albums, she went from tomboy skater pop punk to dark angst to pink princess bubblegum pop. And by the time we get to the release of her 5th eponymous album in 2013, it looked as if she'd completely lost the plot. I mean, so what are you trying to say, that they're replacing her every couple of years with someone else? Like, if you're making the argument that a change in musical style means that she's been replaced, then you have to say that she's been replaced every time that she's changed a musical style. Otherwise, it's not logically consistent, is it? Use your brains, conspiracy theorists. I know it's hard. Yes, it shouldn't really be considered too fishy whenever a recording artist makes a decision to adopt a new sound, but even I was beginning to brew doubts over Avril's real identity when I heard the baffling mixture of J-pop and dubstep and earwax that is the song Hello Kitty. The album track sounds horrible. The album track was exclusively released as a single in Japan, and the accompanying video, which depicts Avril performing half-hearted dance moves alongside expressionless Japanese women whilst wearing a bright pink tutu plastered in 3D fabric cupcakes, sparked accusations of racism and cultural appropriation, although I can't quite get my head around that. The allegations suggest that Avril was mocking or caricaturing a culture that she knows nothing about, but, well, then she wouldn't have just released the song in Japan, would she? She'd have released it somewhere where, I don't know, people want to be racist against Japanese people. Come on! But as Avril pointed out in her defense, she spends half her life in Japan, and the video shoot was conducted by a team of Japanese people. The criticism was only voiced in the West, as nobody in Japan had a problem with the video at all. No. That's not what's wrong here. After studying the video several times in what has turned out to be the most painful research I've ever conducted for a script, oh my god, Danny, poor you, I've concluded that what's wrong with it is that it's just absolutely bloody awful. The song appears to be aimed at the toddlers market, and Avril spends much of it simply repeating, "Hello Kitty, you're so pretty, kawaii," over and over again. The Independent weren't too wide of the mark when they suggested that Hello Kitty will make your eyes and ears bleed. I'm going to listen to it after this. I'll just be recording my next video, and I have blood dripping down my face. How could the same rebellious teenager with attitude behind Skater Boy be responsible for churning out such cutesy, inane drivel? Well, she obviously didn't, and I can't help feeling that the real Avril Lavigne would be spinning in her grave. It's relatively rare that Avril herself, Melissa Vandella, has addressed the conspiracy theory, though she has spoken a few times over the years when pressed about it in interviews with Brazilian and Australian TV, the Entertainment Weekly website, on a Facebook livestream, and most recently in a 2024 episode of the comedy and advice podcast Call Her Daddy. Avril has described the conspiracy theory as a dumb internet rumor and expressed her amazement that so many fans have bought into it, suggesting that some people are just bored and need something to talk about. She also joked that as far as a conspiracy theory goes, it could be a lot worse. But Avril Rangers have noted that she's never flat out denied it or taken positive steps to prove that she's the real Avril Lavigne. Tell you what, Avril Rangers, she doesn't have to, because she's like, this is stupid. If someone was like, you got to prove you're the real Simon, I'd be like, or alternatively, you could right off. Like, it's just ridiculous. Yes, I'm not quite sure how exactly she's supposed to do that. How do you prove to millions of people that you've never met you're exactly the same person you were when you were born? You could always try getting your family and oldest friends to publicly vouch for your authenticity, but they're all going to be in on the conspiracy, aren't they? There's no winning with this. There really is none. And the reason Avril Lavigne doesn't do this is she's like, there's no winning. And also just... Well, here's another idea. She could wheel out her old stunt double, Melissa Vandella, and stand right next to her to prove that they're two very different people. After all, they never appear to have been seen together in the same room. Well, there's one photograph circulating the internet which is alleged to depict the two of them together prior to the real Avril's death, but whilst one of them is clearly Avril, I'm not buying into the idea that the other is Melissa. She looks nothing like Avril for starters. Besides, this other woman is considerably taller than Avril, and we all know Melissa was 3 centimeters shorter. So, what's stopping Avril from appearing alongside Melissa and silencing the conspiracy theories once and for all? Well, there could be a minor problem. It's unlikely that Melissa Vandella ever existed at all. It's reported that she used to be an actress, but there's no sign on her IMDb, and there's no trace of any online footprint relating to an individual named Melissa Vandella. The only thing we have to go on is a Facebook page, which was clearly set up by somebody in Brazil, where the conspiracy theory originated. In Brazil, okay. And a Twitter account which boasts the not entirely subtle handle of Avril is dead. The only link of any kind between Avril and a mysterious Melissa is that time she scrawled the name Melissa across her own hand during a photo shoot for reasons that were never explained. But it could have meant anything at all, and I strongly suspect that the random name on the fist may have just been inspired by the naming of the fictional character that popped up much later in the conspiracy theory. In short, there's no evidence to indicate that Arista Records ever employed anyone by the name of Melissa Vandella, or that Avril Lavigne ever knew anyone by that name, or that Melissa Vandella was ever even a real person. It's enough to make you start wondering if this whole thing was just made up. Oh, it is it, Danny? Avril Lavigne is not the only star to have unwittingly found herself in the center of a clone conspiracy. We've already mentioned the Paul McCartney is dead theory, which is probably the most famous example of all, but there are a few other musicians who are allegedly not quite as alive as you've been led to believe. Beyoncé apparently died in the year 2000 and was replaced with a clone, whilst Taylor Swift is very much alive, but is speculated to be a clone herself, and not just any old clone, but the clone of Zena LaVey, the daughter of the guy who founded the Church of Satan. Oh, please stop it. It's just so ridiculous. But the real Avril Lavigne conspiracy is a particularly puzzling one, as it appears to have gained bigger traction and a longer life than most, despite the fact that it's clearly absurd. I mean, there's a pretty simple explanation for every single argument put forward by the Avril Rangers. With regard to her physical appearance, freckles and moles and skin blemishes can come and go, and it's entirely conceivable that she might have had a bit of work done here and there which would explain the noticeable difference in her nose. Yes, it wouldn't be the first time, and it certainly wouldn't be the first time that a celebrity's had it done and they're not told anyone. Like, my nose looks a lot better, and I've never mentioned my nose job. But with or without plastic surgery, it shouldn't really be considered a mind-blowing revelation that people can start to look a bit different as they age. I mean, I haven't changed at all over the last 20 years, which I expect is something to do with the weird painting I bought down at the flea market. So I like that reference. But just try Googling images of a younger Simon Whistler to see a good example of a person can visibly but gracefully mature like a really good slab of cheese. What the Why are you comparing me to a slab of cheese, Daddy? Avril's voice may have also changed a little bit over time, and I suppose her handwriting may have evolved very slightly too. But how come she suddenly shrank by 3 centimeters before she'd even hit 20? You'd have to concede that this is a little strange. Well, we should start off by saying that Avril's official height has never been set in stone, and unless you get an opportunity to stand right next to her with a tape measure, we can't know for sure if the height originally listed on the website or the revised height listed by Google was accurate. Yes, of course, because, I am a touch over 5'11", 5'11 and a half. I should just describe myself as 6 feet, because who's 5'11"? But Like, that's definitive fact now. I have stated it myself. There you go. You're welcome, internet. 6'8"? I am not. But if there was some people have been replaced, it's like, oh, well, Simon used to be 6'8", and now he's 5'11". What the If the original height on the website came from Avril herself, it's possible that Avril may have cheekily added on a few centimeters. Speaking as a man who stands at a proud 7 foot and 3 inches, I can confirm that I've heard of this thing happening all the time. It's true that Avril underwent some quite dramatic changes in musical direction over the years, but she would hardly be the first to do this, or the first to court controversy and downright anger from devoted fans. The acoustic folk singer Bob Dylan created an outrage in 1965 when he dared to plug in an electric guitar for the first time, provoking a hostile reception to his subsequent live shows when he was heckled by the audience and denounced as Judas. Just off the top of my head, I would say that David Bowie, Fleetwood Mac, Genesis, Primal Scream, Beastie Boys, and Taylor Swift are just 5 examples of influential artists who deeply confused their fans by releasing albums that were completely different from what was expected. Yeah, it's fine. Great. Love Fleetwood Mac. I consider OK Computer by Radiohead to be a contender for the greatest album ever made, but even I began wondering if there'd been a mix-up at the manufacturing plant when I listened to the eagerly awaited follow-up Kid A. But whilst bands like Status Quo are happy enough to get away with releasing almost identical material for the best part of 50 years, others just prefer to brave the risks of being a bit more experimental, even if some of the older fans aren't gonna like it one bit. Yeah, it's fine. I've changed what I do over the years, and some people come with you, some people don't. It's fine, but it's nice to grow as an artist. Sorry, I wasn't referring to myself as an artist. As a creator would be a better word for me. I'm not an artist. I think another point to bear in mind is that Avril Lavigne often took unusually long breaks in between albums, during which she may have had more time than most to consider a new direction. Whilst enjoying a lengthy break is a luxury enjoyed by long-established artists, it's a dangerous move for an artist aimed squarely at younger audiences, and the pressure is usually on to keep relentlessly popping out material before you're completely forgotten. Not all of Avril's lengthy breaks were down to personal choice, most notably the 4-year hiatus between 2014 and 2018 was down to that battle with Lyme disease. But this did mean that fans were often taken by surprise when they finally got to hear relatively scarce new material from an artist who was moving out of her teens and then into her 20s and 30s. An artist who was simply growing up, maturing, and playing with new sounds and styles. Everybody grows up. Just look at Miley Cyrus. One minute she's the thoroughly wholesome face of Disney's Hannah Montana, the next minute she's flashing off all her bits while riding around on a giant inflatable cock. I don't know this reference, but okay. Yet as far as I've been able to make out, nobody ever has accused Miley Cyrus of being a clone. So, why are so many people desperate to cling to the Avril Lavigne is dead theory, and where exactly did it come from? Brazil. We found it was Brazil for some reason. Maybe Avril Lavigne's enormously popular in Brazil. Losing grip. The conspiracy theory is thought to have been bubbling away quietly in Brazil since 2005, but it wasn't until 2015 that a long chain of tweets from BuzzFeed reporter Ryan Broderick played a huge part in making this theory go viral for the first time. Ryan had recently spent time in the Brazilian BuzzFeed office, where he'd first learned of the theory, which he found to be absolute nonsense but highly amusing, prompting him to share the joke with his Twitter followers. Shortly afterwards, the story was picked up by various media outlets, including The Mirror, Digital Spy, Vice, Gawker, and the BBC, at which point the topic began trending across all social media channels. Most significantly, a long thread posted by the Twitter user at Givenchy who is apparently a 17-year-old student, gained huge popularity by outlining every ridiculous element of the theory while concluding with the words, like, "I'm not saying that Avril is dead, but Avril is dead." And from here, things began to get even sillier. The internet was suddenly rife with comparison photographs of Avril Lavigne posted by truthers who pointed out all the compelling differences in her physical appearance between her death and her replacement by Melissa. For example, Avril was pale, whilst Melissa had a tan. Avril was wearing purple eyeshadow, whilst Melissa is not wearing purple eyeshadow. And Avril has straight hair, while Melissa has wavy hair. Oh my god, this makes perfect sense because none of these things are choice. They're all inherent characteristics. Jesus Christ, people, use your brains! Avril Lavigne couldn't even post a heartwarming Happy Mother's Day message on Twitter without one of her followers responding with, "I see you, Melissa, you trick-ass bitch." But let's rewind a little bit. Although the rumors are believed to have originated around 2005, the first known published source of the conspiracy theory emerged in 2011 on a Brazilian blogspot entitled Avril Está Morta, or Avril is Dead, written by an anonymous author in the Portuguese language. This long, rambling, and very poorly written blog post was the first to outline many of the arguments that would later become embraced by Avril Rangers, but it didn't really gain any traction at the time, largely because it was long, rambling, and very poorly written in Portuguese. The blogspot page became the blueprint for everything to follow, and was the main reference material used by BuzzFeed reporter Ryan Broderick when he tweeted about the story in 2015 and brought it to the attention of a much wider audience. But here's the thing. Whilst the blogspot author goes to great lengths to present the arguments in a compelling manner as she can muster throughout the main text, the introduction and conclusion make it abundantly clear that the author does not believe in the conspiracy. Right at the very beginning, she notes, "I have no intention of presenting my theory as news or something I would actually be trying to prove, but I want the reader to follow the text as a curiosity." She wraps up the post by pondering over, quoting, "how susceptible the world is to believing in things no matter how strange they seem, simply because a group already believes and affirms, or because they involve many coincidences and spectacular elements. See how much this subject has yielded in the world, as I just observed coincidences and organized them in a way that supported a thesis. Whenever you want to believe in something questionable, there will always be elements for you to justify your belief, but be careful that your life is not based on a mere conspiracy theory, tidied up and organized to make it seem real. The reality is right in front of your nose." For a writer, that was quite difficult to read. I don't know why, I just struggled to read that. It's a bit messy, in my opinion. I'm not a writer, just a reader. It was a lot harder to read than Danny's writing. After the theory exploded with Ryan Broderick's tweets in 2015, the same author of the blogspot page again waded into the debate with a Facebook post which emphasized that she'd just made it all up. The blogger pointed out, "The blog was a way to show how conspiracy theories can seem real. Avril Lavigne never died or was replaced by a lookalike. I created this theory to see if people would believe it, and thousands of people believed it was fact. This was an exercise to teach you to become more skeptical and not believe everything you see. If you want to believe that she is dead, this is your choice. But I say that it was all just a theory created by me." One of the earliest responses to this post was from an Avril Ranger who suggested that the blogger's Facebook account had been hacked by an idiot. The problem here is that people just they don't want to give up their conspiracy theories. You present them with objective truth and they'll be like, no, something else. The problem here is the original intention got buried deep along the way. Incidentally, that's not Ryan Broderick's fault. When he tweeted about the story in 2015, he also made it clear that the original blogger was never trying to suggest that the theory was real. But the subsequent tweets and reports and forum discussions over the next few years omitted this vital fact, and sadly, it was this kind of stuff that drew the most attention. But when the original blogger had tried to clearly reiterate her original intention on Facebook, her post only generated a few hundred likes and close to 0 shares. In comparison, the tweet from Givenchy, which supported the conspiracy theory, generated nearly 200,000 likes and almost 150,000 retweets, whilst various other online posts and articles from Avril Rangers have all been shared tens of thousands of times. It seems that a story is far more likely to take off into the stratosphere if you take out all of the sensible bits. Of course, even without the admission from the original blogger that the theory was essentially a test of gullibility or stupidity, it still seems bonkers that anyone could take the theory seriously on any level, bearing in mind that the majority of the argument rests on the concept of Avril Lavigne's physical appearance changing slightly as she aged, along with her musical tastes and fashion sense. But in this case, it seems that some of the hardcore fans, who were there from the very beginning, just couldn't handle how much Avril had changed over the years. They refused to believe that the punk pop princess they originally fell in love with in 2002 was the same person now sporting a bright pink tutu and chanting, "Hello Kitty, you're so pretty." It is cringe, isn't it? And rather than accept that Avril couldn't remain a 17-year-old emo punk skater for the rest of her life, it became easier to believe that the original artist must have died based on a whole pile of frankly comical evidence. The good news for those fans is that they may have finally got their original Avril back after all these years. His most recent album from 2022, Love Sucks, was very much a return to the pop punk of the debut album, and there's not a single kitty in sight. And having caught some of Avril's set at Glastonbury 2024 last weekend, she still looks pretty much the same person to me, albeit a person who is 22 years older than she used to be. She certainly wasn't a headlining act, and in fact didn't even make it onto the main stage where Coldplay were topping the bill for what feels like the 40th year in a row. Yeah, because it's Coldplay. But she still attracted a huge enthusiastic crowd of 70,000 revelers who seemed to get particularly pumped up when she finally broke into Skater Boy. Coldplay is an example of a band whose their style has changed over the years. And as I'm sure their creativity's changed and as musical demands have changed, like, I generally prefer Coldplay's earlier stuff. Do I like some of their newer stuff? Yes. Not as much, but that's fine because people's tastes change and musicians make different sorts of music. One very last point to consider for anyone still convinced that Avril is a clone. When John Lennon released his final album, Double Fantasy, in 1980, it didn't particularly trouble the charts too much until immediately after he was murdered, at which point it jumped to number 1 around the world. After Kurt Cobain took his own life in 1994, all 3 Nirvana albums jumped straight back up the charts. Linkin Park witnessed a 7,000% surge in streams in the immediate aftermath of the death of their frontman Chester Bennington in 2017, while Michael Jackson's death in 2009 led him to becoming the biggest selling artist of the year, despite not having released a new album in 8 years. If Avril Lavigne really had suffered a tragic death in 2003, the crisis meeting at the headquarters of Arista Records in Santa Clara, California, would have actually been a pretty straightforward affair. Instead of investing an extraordinary amount of time and effort into concealing her death and replacing her with a lookalike, the most profitable strategy, at least in the short term, would have been to sit back and just do nothing at all. They really do need to look at that leaking coffee machine, though. And that is where we end today's episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoy it, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.